Welcome back to Bogart on Movies. As we prepare for our new season, we want to bring you today our discussion of some great, and I mean really great movies, all about Eve. Is there anyone better than Bette Davis? Yankee Doodle Dandy, what a performance by James Cagney. And Grapes of Wrath, Henry Fonda, reaching our very soul. And Goodfellas, my perfect movie. And Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman's triumph. Here is what they were all about. For our classic movie segment this week, we are extremely happy to be once again joined by Carol Watson. She's a professor at Lynn University. Welcome back, Carol.
Thank you.
Our choice this week is the great Bette Davis in 1950's All About Eve. Written and directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, starring Bette Davis, of course, George Sanders, and Anne Baxter, it was nominated for 14 Academy Awards, a number unmatched until Titanic. It's considered one of the great movies ever.
The general atmosphere is very Macbethish. What has or is about to happen?
What is he talking about?
Macbeth.
We know you. We've seen you like this before. Is it over or is it just beginning? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Mademoiselle, je vous remercie infiniment pour l'invitation.
Enchanté to you, too. I distinctly remember Addison crossing you off my guest list. What are you doing here?
Dear Margot, you were an unforgettable Peter Pan. You must play it again soon. You remember Miss Caswell, don't you?
I do not. How do you do?
We've never met. Maybe that's why.
Miss Caswell is an actress, a graduate of the Copacabana School of Dramatic Art. Ah, Eve.
Good evening, Mr. DeWitt.
I had no idea you two knew each other.
This must be at long last our formal introduction. Until now, we've only met in passing.
That's how you met me, in passing.
Yes.
Eve, this is an old friend of Mr. DeWitt's mother, Miss Caswell, Miss Harrington.
Miss Caswell, how do you do?
Addison, I've been wanting you to meet Eve for the longest time.
It could only have been your natural timidity that kept you from mentioning it.
You've heard of her great interest in the theater.
We have that in common.
Then you two must have a long talk.
I'm afraid Mr. DeWitt would find me boring before too long. You won't bore him, honey. You won't even get a chance to talk.
Claudia, come here. You see that man? That's Max Fabian, the producer. Now go and do yourself some good.
Why do they always look like unhappy rabbits?
Because that's what they are. Now go and make him happy.
Yeah, that was Marilyn Monroe. And before we talk about Bette Davis and the rest of the movie, your impressions of Marilyn Monroe?
Well, you know, it's really fun to watch her in that scene. This is one of her breakthrough films in terms of having this cameo role. And I can't tell if she's just utterly terrified or excited to be in the film or both. She's got that deer in headlights look.
Yeah, she does. I don't know that I've ever seen her be utterly terrified, but you can tell it's Marilyn with the way she speaks and the way she moves. She could have been terrified to be in the movie, though.
Really?
Anyway, Bette Davis, phenomenal performance,
Yeah.
And award-winning.
Yeah, well, here's Bette Davis. I think she was maybe 41 when the film was made, 42 when it came out, and Joseph Mankiewicz wrote and directed for her. And we're watching a woman who is middle-aged. I mean, the film is all about Eve, but we're really interested in all about Margot Channing, which is the character that she plays. And 40 years old for actresses in Hollywood is really across the Rubicon as far as getting parts and sustaining a career, because
still is almost.
Still is, yeah, for most actresses, yes. And so Bette took on this role, and it really did resurrect her career. And what I really enjoy about the film is that it really does portray a woman that age and her concerns, particularly an actress on Broadway, and losing her youth. And her lover, played by Gary Merrill, is in life and on the screen 8 years younger. And up comes this Eve Harrington, who is maybe 25, and she feels like she's losing both her career and her lover to a younger woman, and it creates for her, that's why she's drinking so much in that scene. I mean, she's really upset.
Well, before we talk about the character Eve, I should point out that my mother in the Broadway play Applause played the Margot Channing role.
Really?
Penny Fuller played Eve. And just so you know, the person that replaced my mother when she left the role was Ann Baxter. I swear to God. Life imitating art.
Yeah.
But you had some interesting insights into the character of Eve.
Yeah, well, I don't get her.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it Ann Baxter or was it the character
I don't
itself?
know. Mankiewicz created an idea of a rapacious, voracious, ambitious young woman, the psychology of which I don't really get, where she's come from, who she is. It's just an idea. And she's almost evil. And
She was evil, yeah.
yeah. So she's not flesh and blood to me as the character of Margot Channing is. And so for me, that part is formulaic and not flesh and blood. I mean, it's fun to watch. It's fun. She's fun to hate, but we really don't get much insight into her. I mean, there are some thoughts about her being a lesbian. You know,
yes. Yes. And that was part of the movie that was kind of controversial because when Eve and it wasn't Phoebe, it was the woman on the phone when she was setting up Margot. Right. And they were walking arm in arm up the stairs in their nightgowns, and that was a big thing.
And there's also something about the intimacy and the connection between Celeste Holm and the Ann Baxter character, Eve and Karen, that also to me, as I was watching, I was thinking, why are they so interested in each other?
Well, and Bette in this movie, she was very likable, I thought. You know, I mean, some might not, but I thought she was very, very likable in this movie.
You know, I'm glad you said that because I'm not sure that the intention was to make her likable because she is tempestuous. She does drink a lot. She does say unkind things to people. But what she does tell is the truth. And she's the only one who sees through Eve Harrington. And others are, like Karen, are taking her to task for it, criticizing her for being so impolite.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For our classic movie this week, we're going to put the spotlight on one of the greatest performances by any actor ever. James Cagney as the King of Broadway, George M. Cohan, in 1942's biopic, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Cagney, of course, is best remembered for his 1930s tough guy roles, but here an entirely different actor in an entirely different role. Who knew Cagney could dance? Well, he began tap dancing as a kid and he was an expert. Watch this clip from the movie Cohan's Give My Regards to Broadway. All I got to say is wow. But the movie was more than Cagney. It had everything going for it. It had Cohan's best songs. It co-starred Walter Houston, John's father, who later would win an Oscar co-starring with my father in Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It was directed by Michael Curtiz, who had a little hit later on called Casablanca. And it was an uplifting, patriotic movie in the middle of World War II, a time when the country needed it most.
I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, Yankee Doodle do or die. A real live nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride the ponies. I am that Yankee Doodle boy. He's a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die. A real life nephew of his Uncle Sam.
That was so great. And you want rousing? Here's the finale, beginning with Cagney as Cohan dancing down the stairs at the White House, a move ad-libbed by Cagney after he was awarded a medal by President FDR.
This medal is for people who've given their lives to their country or done something big. I'm just a song and dance man. Everybody knows that.
A man may give his life to his country in many different ways, Mr. Cohan. And quite often, he isn't the best judge of how much he has given.
That brings a tear to my eye. So get a copy of this classic and enjoy one of the great performances and most enjoyable movies you'll ever see. This week in our look at a classic film, we go back to 1940 and the brilliant Henry Fonda in the equally brilliant The Grapes of Wrath. I warn you, this is not a happy film. It's dark, it's dirty, and it is depressing, which it should be, as it's about the Joad family, who lost their Oklahoma farm during the Dust Bowl Great Depression years of the 1930s, and their hard scrabble search for work that takes them all the way to California.
That wind's fixing to do something.
Sure it is. Always is this time of year.
Nobody here? Something's happened.
You got a match?
Can't stay there either. Because John's got his notice to get off.
What happened? How come they gotta get off? We lived here 50 years, same place.
Everybody's got to get off. Everybody's leaving, going out to California. Your folks, my folks, everybody's folks. Everybody except me. I ain't getting off.
Who done it?
Listen, that's someone what done it. The Dusters. They started anyways. Blowing like this year after year, blowing the land away, blowing the crops away, blowing us away now.
The movie was directed by John Ford in an adaptation, of course, from John Steinbeck's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel of the same name. Screenplay by Nunnally Johnson, who was introduced to me by my parents when I was about 4 after I slammed him in the head with a silver tray. But that is another story for another day. There's a lot of politics in this film, and when it came out, it had its critics because of that. Supposedly, and to the film's credit, Joseph Stalin banned the movie in the USSR because it showed that even the poorest Americans could afford a car. The movie was a bit different from the book in that in the book, the Joad family goes to pieces, while in the movie, in the end, they end up okay. Never mind, nothing can take away from the performance of Henry Fonda.
I've been thinking about us, too. About our people living like pigs and good, rich land laying fallow. Or maybe one guy with 1 million acres and 100,000 farmers starving. And I've been wondering if all our folks got together and yelled.
Oh, Tommy, they drive you out and cut you down just like they done to
drive
Casey.
me anyways. Sooner or later they get me for one thing, if not for another. Until then.
Tommy, you're not even to kill nobody.
No, Ma, not that. That ain't it. It's just, well, as long as I'm an outlaw anyways, maybe I can do something. Maybe I can just find out something. Just scrounge around and maybe find out what it is that's wrong. And see if there ain't something that can be done about it.
This is a film that you need to see. Enjoy it for its greatness and the greatness of Henry Fonda's performance. Now, let's check the Bogart on Movies mailbox. Tom in Wellington writes, "My wife says that your father and mother met and dated before they were cast together into Have and Have Not. I say the first time they met was when they were making that movie. Who's right? I've got $5 writing on this." Tommy, baby, you win. My mother met my father during the movie, not before the movie. And as a matter of fact, when she first met him, she told me he looked really old and I really didn't like him too much. Obviously that changed, and I'm the proof of that. So thank you very much for writing, and keep those emails coming. You can email me, send me your comments and questions to stevebogart@wxel.org, and include your name and your hometown. And now let's go to Carla's Campy Pics. This time, the ghost in the invisible bikini with legitimate stars like Boris Karloff, Basil Rathbone, and my buddy Nancy Sinatra. Take a look at this one.
She's the swingin'est ghost you've ever yearned for, haunting a pre-will reading seance.
I thought I made it clear to you and your wretched crew that you would dispose of everybody before I read the will.
What you have to do is to see that my rightful heirs get the money.
Yeah, man, here's one haunted house the M Gang wants to investigate.
What are all these strange people doing here?
Make the music pretty, play a happy song. Make the music pretty or I can't go on. Everybody's singing about a broken heart. Don't you know, can't you see it's tearing me apart now? Make the music pretty and I'll tell you why. Make the music pretty or you'll make me cry. Let me hear you play a happy melody. Come on and make the music pretty for me.
Television repairman.
Just take a look into my eyes.
Looking for maybe Sex and the Single Ghoul? Here's a movie that has more than everything.
When you need me, when you want me, hey baby, let's go.
Why me? Why me all the time?
Finally this week, another one of my absolute favorites. It's a movie I think is absolutely perfect, and that's Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hey, Mom, what do you think?
You look like a gangster.
I know By the time I grew up, there was $30 billion a year in cargo moving through Idlewild Airport. Believe me, we tried to steal every bit of it.
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
He's not Jewish.
Mazel tov.
For most of the guys, killing's got to be accepted.
Hey, Henry, here's an arm.
Very funny, guys.
Here's a leg.
Here's a wing. What do you like, the leg or the wing?
For us, to live any other way was nuts. And we were treated like movie stars with muscle. We had it all just for the asking.
It's gonna be a good summer.
It was a glorious time.
In a world that's powered by violence, on the streets where the violent have power, a new generation carries on an old tradition.
Ah, how great is that? Everything in this picture worked. The acting with Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, Robert De Niro as Jimmy Conway, Pesci, who, by the way, has a surprising connection to the musical group The Four Seasons, the wonderful Lorraine Bracco, Paul Sorvino, even Scorsese's mom had a part as Pesci's mom in the movie. I can't believe it didn't win Best Picture. Dances with Wolves did, which I liked, but come on. Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, Raging Bull, Color of Money. Would we ever see the Academy give the West Coast guy an Oscar? Thankfully, yes. So take a trip into the true story of Henry Hill and check out Goodfellas. For my pick this week, we turn to the Sidney Lumet-directed Slice of New York, 1975's Dog Day Afternoon.
You know something, people? You're going to be remembered the rest of your lives for the day you got held up and kidnapped.
At approximately 3 p.m. on August 22nd, 1972, Sonny Wurtzig and Sal Naturale entered the First Brooklyn Savings Bank and attempted a robbery.
Freeze! Nobody move! Get over there!
The attempt failed.
There's no money here.
They picked it up this afternoon. There's only 1,100.
This is too much. It's for you. What?
The police arrived.
This is Detective Sergeant Eugene Moretti. What are you doing in there?
For the people of the neighborhood, it was a sideshow.
Sonny!
Sonny! But for Sonny and Sal, the hostages, and the cops, it was a dog day afternoon.
It's all a whim. Rob a bank.
I had a plan. I had it planned. WNEW plays all the hits. Will you keep away from this bank or we're going to start throwing bodies out the front door one at a time. I'm a Catholic and I don't want to hurt anybody, understand?
How about letting the people have the bank?
They're keeping me alive. I'm going to let him out.
Sir, can you tell me what the situation is?
All right, who has to go to the bathroom? Honey, come on out.
And remember the famous Attica, Attica chant from the movie? Well, it was actually improvised by Al Pacino, and he's one of my absolute favorites. He got an Oscar nomination along with director Lumet. The movie was based on a bank robbery in Brooklyn a few years earlier. In a strange twist, the real-life bank robber watched the movie The Godfather to get ideas for his robbery. The Godfather, of course, co-starring Al Pacino. I met Pacino once. My mom, Lauren Bacall, and I were in a New York restaurant, and Pacino came over to the table to say hi. Of course, I was mesmerized. I'm still a fan at heart. He was totally rumpled, long blue overcoat, old school with that voice, just like you'd expect him to be. This is movie making at its finest. Well, it's time again for Steve's Real Pick, and this week it's the great Paul Newman in what I think is his best role, as Luke Jackson in 1967's Cool Hand Luke. Co-stars included George Kennedy, who won an Oscar for his role as Luke's buddy Dragline, and a brilliant performance by Strother Martin as the prison boss.
detective, some neat things. You better come along with us.
You're gonna get used to wearing them chains after a while, Luke. But you never stop listening to them clinking. 'Cause they're gonna remind you of what I've been saying.
Wish you'd stop being so good to me, Captain.
Don't you ever talk that way to me. Never! Never! What we've got here is failure to communicate. What we've got here is failure to communicate. What we've got here.
What we got here
failure to communicate.
Is a failure to communicate.
This wonderful film was director Stuart Rosenberg's first major movie and his finest work. George Kennedy, as I said, gets an Oscar for his role as Dragline, the head prisoner who starts out as Newman's enemy and ends up his cohort. And Newman, a great actor, mesmerizing as Luke. Just a mischievous kid at heart, lovable, vulnerable, scarred by war, and now the brutality of prison. Yet even with all the brutality, the movie still projects some sense of humor. And ladies, those blue eyes. This is a great movie. Watch it. Until next week, yes, boss. Yes, boss. And next week, more classic encores, the best of the best. Please join us for Bogart on Movies.